Good morning. Today I'm going to show you how I carve my stamps as you have requested. Before we get started though, I'm going to show you the newest addition to the Blueberry Girls. It's the little girls, little alien girls right up here. She kind of looks like a flamingo. She looks like she's angry, but well, I don't know if she looks like she's angry. Frustrated? I don't know. Monitoring, watching. Anyway, I think they're cute. I just followed along with some of the marks that were up here. And that's the only addition to the Blueberry Girls at this point. So I'm going to put that to the side and then I'm going to get started showing you how I carve my stamps. Okay, so first off, let me just say, if there are any rules to stamp carving, I don't know them. I started stamp carving just on a whim because I wanted to give it a try. I didn't read the rule book. I just looked at the pictures and thought, okay, I can do that. The only thing I can tell you that I know for a fact is to try to work away from you so that you don't hurt yourself. I just sat down one day and started tracing out some shapes and then I started carving. There's one thing that I am not sure about. The ink that you use for putting on your stamps, I don't know if it makes a difference or not. I do know that I use StazOn a lot and I do know that I have to clean my stamps because if I don't, the ink just keeps reapplying to whatever other ink I use. So this will mix in with yellows and greens and reds, and your colors won't turn out exactly the color of your ink. They blend, and I don't mind that. I use mine for mixed media work, so I don't really care if they're perfect. But if you care, you might want to check into the inks that are available for this product. The product I'm using is Speedball, and I think they do have inks that you can roll onto your stamps after you create them. And maybe they're better. I don't know. I have not researched that. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with a block of rubber. And there are two types of rubber that I have. There are more. This one is a blue one I've never worked with. This was a gift from Terry, and thank you so much, Terry. I appreciate that. I can tell you now that I have it open. When I did the supplies video, I told you I wasn't sure if there was a difference between the two rubbers or not, but between the pink and the blue does have a stiffer feel, although it is not really stiff, so it does move. So I think it's going to be just fine for what I want to do. So we're going to work on that today. But the pink does have a little bit softer, more bendable texture to it than this one. But this one still has a lot of movement. I'm going to do a couple things first before we actually start on a actual stamp. I'm going to explain a couple things. One, I never use the transfer paper. The transfer paper that comes in the kit, if you bought a kit, is to help you transfer an image onto your block of rubber so that you can carve whatever it is you trace. I just use regular paper and the rub-on method. So if you want to use your tracing paper, you would draw your design on your paper. You put your paper down on your block and then you would trace over it. Turn your paper down the side that you drew on and it will transfer onto your block. I never do it that way, so I'm going to put that off to the side. The way I do it is I make my design on my regular paper. Let's say I'm going to make a circle. I make it dark enough. I just turn it over. And then I just rub. You can use the end of something soft. You can use the end of your scissors. You can use your fingers, and it transfers onto your block the same way. And then I have a drawing of my design that I want to play with, or that I have a record of. Okay, so let's come up with a design for something small because I want to show you the differences in the carving. So I'm just going to draw a line, actually two lines. So I've got two lines, and on this one we'll do the same thing. So I have the same design on both. If I take my tool, this is the two that come in the kit, if you bought the kit. One's a V shape, one's a U shape. So I'm going to use the V shape. On this one, I'm going to go in between my lines and carve out the center up to the line. And I'm going to carve on the outside of my lines. So I carved on the outside of that line, the outside of this line, and the inside between the lines. Okay? And let's just go ahead and do the top. And I'll just cut this out. The carving's not going to be perfect because this is a rough stamp carve. just to show you an example of something. So that one is ready to be tested. This one, I'm going to only carve the outside of my lines. I'm going to leave the inside alone. Do the top and the bottom. So let's do this test and let me show you the difference. Keep my ink and we'll get a piece of paper. I'm just going to use black so it's easy for you to see. This is the first one we did. This is the stamp where I carved on the outside of my lines and in the center and tops. Okay, you see what that looks like? Normally I would come back in and clean all this up right here, clean these little lines, but you can see there's my line, there's my line. I carved out over here, I carved out over here, and I carved out in the center. The other one, we did not do that, we did a different carve. On this one, I only carved outside my line and outside my line. I did not carve the center, so I essentially get a square. I would come back and clean this up right here. I don't need those. I would either cut it off or carve it out. But you can see where you carve is going to make a difference. If you want negative space to color in or paint in or something like that, you'll need to carve out the centers of whatever you design. If you only want the shape and you want your stamp to be the color, then you will carve differently. Here's an example. On this flower, I carved outside all my lines, outside everywhere. I left the centers alone except for the little decorative marks right here. So everything's going to be black or whatever color my stamp is. On this one, I carved out all around my outside line and on the inside so that this is negative space, and so your stamp pad will pick up these solid pieces as your color. Whatever you don't carve is what your stamp pad's going to pick up. Whatever you carve, it's going to be negative space, and that's where you can color in or paint or doodle or whatever you want to do. You can doodle and paint over your dark colors. It's a matter of what you want your design to look like. Do you want the solid look or do you want a open look? I have an example of one I don't like that I'm going to be redoing probably. When I stamp this flower, it's all mostly solid, and I really would prefer a lot of this to be open. I'll show you what this looks like as a stamp. Here's the impression of what it looks like, and I didn't do any more. You can see these I did several to try to get it right. This one I looked at and said, I don't like it. I need to carve out more, and I went on to something else. So you can see there's so much solid here because this is all left intact. It's not carved out. But this little line that's carved right here and this little line that's carved right here, it shows up as negative space. Okay, I hope I explained that well enough. And if not, ask questions below, and if I can't answer it, maybe somebody else can answer in the comments that could be helpful. Let's get on to a design. Okay, like I said, I don't use the transfer paper, so I'm just going to use the paper method. I'm just going to cut out a piece of paper the size that I want to work with, and I've got a pencil. And I want to create a flower. I've been wanting to make another flower, so I'm going to look through some papers that I've been playing with and see if I can find a design that I like. I think I want to do something like these. So let's make our flower design. And I want to make sure that it'll fit on my block, whatever I design. So let's cut the paper down to the block size, just so I don't go bigger than the block. Okay, so then you just draw your design, and you draw it as many times as you need until you get it the way you want it. If you don't get it on the first try, you keep going. So we'll see how many times it takes me to get the design I want. And I wanted loose lines, so I don't want to do exact. So I'm not going to hold my pencil nice and neat. I'm going to hold it weird. I should do it with my left hand if I really want the wonky flower that I'm looking for. But I think for today, I'll just go ahead and do it with my right hand and just do it very loosely. If you don't like something, just erase it. Kind of like that. All right. Then what I would do is I would trace over the lines that I really want to keep. I like the squared off ends. So then I just darken it up, and I'll speed all this up so you don't have to sit through a lot of this, but I'm just going to keep going over my design until it's as dark as I want it. And if you feel like you need it darker, grab maybe a charcoal pencil or something like that and trace until you get it as dark as you want. Okay, I have my tracing done. Now I'm going to bring my rubber block in. I'm going to turn my paper over, and I can see my design through the paper a little bit. This is just a thin drawing paper. And I'm just going to put this down on the block in an area where I can get the most use of my block and still maybe have a little bit left over, but I want to make sure I've got enough room for carving. Then I'm just going to rub my design onto my block. And check as you go, hold your paper firm, and then check as you go to see if your design is transferring over. Let me lower you down so you can see a little bit more closely that I am actually getting a transfer. Okay, I think I got everything I need. And also, however you draw is how your stamp's going to look, because you are turning your paper over and you're putting your transfer down, so when you stamp, it's going to stamp like this. So if you want to do a number, like the number 2, if you draw the number 2, and then you turn it over and you trace number 2, when you stamp, your 2 is going to be correct. But if you're doing it straight to your block, you're going to need to do it backwards, because if you do a 2 to your block and then stamp it, it's going to be backwards. So then, after I get my transfer down, I go back over with my pencil and I darken it up, just so that I can see it really well. And I can make changes here if I want to. I can tweak it, I can add to it, I can take away, whatever I want to do. I left some little gaps down here on purpose. I'll have to carve those out. All right, so I've traced that on. Now it's on there really well. So then what I'm going to do is take the 2 that come in the kit, and if I have to, I will use this really tiny one. If you don't have the tiny one, you just have to use the one that came in the kit that's a V shape to get out your little areas, and maybe I'll do that just to keep it very simple. Now's when you decide, do you want an outline of your flower? If you want your petals open so you can paint them, then you'll need to carve out all the center of this. And I think that's what we're going to do, because I want to be able to make a stamp impression of this flower, but it to be all negative space in these openings here, so that I can do my own painting and coloring. Okay, so first thing I want to do is go around all the outside, and I think I'll just use my U-shaped one, and I'll just start carving. Try not to make a deep impression, but I am heavy-handed, so I do tend to get a deep impression. And I can tell the blue is a little bit different to carve on. It's not as soft to carve into, but I think we'll be okay. Just get your outline started. And I turn the block, instead of bringing my carving tool up and then back toward me like this, which gives you less control, I turn my entire block so that my carving tool is going away from me. If you need a V shape to get in some smaller spaces, switch out. Try not to hold up here in case you slip, because this will cut you. If you only bought one kit or have one tool and you can't switch back and forth like this, that's why I have several, because I wanted to be able to not have to change out the blade every single time. Just do the main parts with the blade you have on there first, and then switch your blade, and then come back in and do the small stuff. Like, you know, if you need to get in here, just leave it until later, finish all your outside work, then switch your blades out, and then come back in and do your smaller stuff. Just make it easy on yourself. Don't make it frustrating. You don't want to get discouraged. You just want to have fun. This can be really fun and relaxing. I feel a little pressure because I'm doing a video, but normally I sit here and I'm just chill as can be. I actually like this blue so far because I can see my design better. When you're carving on the pink, it's still kind of pinkish in here. Like you can see, it's all pink all the way through. This changes color a little bit so I can see where I've actually carved better. Okay, now I'll get in the tiny spots here. See any place that you don't like, clean it up. Alright, so now what I have to do, since I want my design to be open, I want all this to be negative space, I have to carve on the other side of my line. So I've carved on the outside of my line, now I'm going to carve on the inside, all the way around here, and I have to cut out the whole center. To make it easier on yourself, if you don't want to do that, you could keep carving this way, then cut it out, and then just make some thin lines in here. Actually, I need to finish that. If you don't want negative space, it will be a faster stamp, but to get what I want, it's going to take a little longer. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and then I'm going to start on the inside. Since I have a large space to do in here, this is what I think the bigger tools are for, but I'm going to stick with the ones that you guys probably got in a kit, just to make it simple. So let's just start carving out the center of our flower. I'm going to go on the other side of the line. I'm going to be careful not to go on my line because I want to make sure and have that flower shape. Gotta go slow because if you slip, you might jab into your design and mess it up. So just take it easy. This is one of those things, just have to have a little patience. Okay, now this is going to have to be cleaned up, but if I was to stamp this right now, like if I used black ink, what I would get is solid black, solid black, solid black, solid black, but then here I'd get a black outline right here. I'd get the flower petal and empty on the inside, and that's what I'm going for. After we finish, we're going to test it and we're going to clean up what we need to clean up because this is probably going to leave marks, and I like some of the marks that are left by the stamp carving, but some of you might not, so you might have to do a lot of cleaning on your stamp. I'm just going to keep working on this. If I wanted to, I could leave my flowers like this, and then when I stamped, I'd get an outline here, a blank space right here, and then a black space here, or whatever color ink I'm using. But like I said, I want it like this, so I'm going to keep going, but I just thought I'd tell you, you can make designs in your petals. I'm just reinforcing the line that I want to stay within in case I lost any in the carve. Okay, I have my design the way I want it. What's left now is to clean it up, test it. I also want to cut out around here and get as much of the block away from it as I can. I don't want to carve all this out to make my stamp, so we got to cut this away. So I'm going to just use scissors. You can use an X-Acto knife on a self-healing mat, and cut it close or chop it, but I'm going to just cut it. And all these little pieces that I'm having left over will become stamps at some point. Then I just want all this out of the way. This will become mark making stamps. If I want to continue cutting this out, I can X-Acto knife it or cut it, but I can also carve it out and then it will not give me a problem. So I think that's what I'll do. In doing it this way, when I stamp, sometimes I get the crazy little marks. So like in this one here, those little tiny little pink lines that are not part of the design, I like that. So I don't mind some of that. But we'll see. Once we test this, we'll see what it looks like. If you have a bigger tool, you can use a bigger tool. I'm using the ones that come in the kit so that it can show you guys that you can do it with those two blades that come with the kit. This blue block is a little bit easier to clean up, I feel like, because I can wipe these little crumbly pieces away with my fingers, and the pink block, I couldn't do that as well. The pink block is more rubbery. It can be done, but it just is a little harder. I like both. Okay, I think what we're going to do now is test the stamp and see what it looks like, and then we'll know what to do next. All right, let's give it a test. And I'll be able to tell as soon as I put my ink down where I'm going to have to carve. Okay, you can see already on the stamp, anything black is going to show up on my paper, and then I just take away what I don't want. Even pressure. Oh, I love it. So now, this is our first test. This is our design. So now I see all these dark lines if I want to remove them, but I think I like these lines inside the petals. It gives it a little character. So I'm going to leave those lines inside the petals. I am going to carve away the outside lines right here. Okay, and clean that up. But I think inside is very pretty. It just gives that flower petal some texture, and it doesn't bother me a bit. But you can see on your stamp where you need to clean up now. You can see these are the lines I want to leave, so I'm going to leave them. And these are the ones that I want to get rid of out here. This video may be a little longer than normal, but I want to make sure and leave in every little thing that would be helpful to you guys instead of glossing over it. And if I miss something, it wouldn't be for lack of trying. So I just did that wrong. I shouldn't have gone toward my hand, but you know, I get excited and get in a hurry. Some of these lines on the outside I might leave because I kind of like them. I like this little one here at the end. I'm going to leave it for the next test and see what I think, and then if I don't like it, I'll remove it. Let's do another test. I didn't put as much ink on that one, but you can see that the cleanup is going well. I've got this cleaned up over here a little bit. Still have a little bit more to do, but a lot of the cleanup did take away some of the marks. It also depends. This is rubber, so if you clean up this area, there's still lines out here. So if you push really hard and you push the rubber into your paper, these lines will show up. So you have to determine how much pressure to give it once you get your stamp finished and you like it. So let's continue our cleanup. Let's do another test. See, I pushed really hard, and now look at all this dark right here. So if it shows up on my paper, I have to decide, do I want to clean that? So it may take a little while to get it where you want it, but just keep at it. You'll get it. That's looking much better. This area here didn't even show up on the paper, so I must have it carved down low enough so these are raised up high enough so that I don't get that mark unless I push really hard and push the rubber down. So I might be okay with that. I think I'm going to clean up a little bit more just to make sure. And this area here just needs a little bit more. And then I think I'm going to stop because I actually could be very happy with it like this because it's very quaint and very cute. I love that. Okay, so one more cleanup, one more test, and then we'll do a project with this. I love these two little test prints that I did for you guys. I love those. I'm going to use those in mark making for sure. Oh, that's just so pretty. I love that. That's just pretty. All right, I'm through cleaning. I think that's good enough. I don't mind the little pieces, you know, out here, the little, it's almost like newspaper print, like when they used to print years ago, the ink would splatter on things a little bit. I just think that's pretty. I do think this in here needs to be cleaned out just a little bit to make it a little more open. Okay, let's use our stamp on something. I'm gonna do one of the quick scrap journal pages in my All Because of Scraps little miniature book. And I have a bigger book, but the stamp will fill out this page nicely. So let's find where I left off. I've done a flip through of this book, if you were interested in seeing it. I think the flip through ended here. I've only done one page since, so it's the big book I've worked in most. Oh, here's one. So we're gonna work on this page. I'm gonna go get a few scraps and a piece of paper to put my stamp on. We're gonna use a little bit of watercolor. All right, before we actually get our scraps together, let's go ahead and get our stamp stamped and colored in. Then we'll know what kind of scraps we need. I'm just gonna use this scrap piece of paper here. The paper I'm using is You Create Drawing Pad, heavyweight, and it's not really heavyweight. It's a little bit heavier than the copy paper that comes out of your copy machine. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to get a stamp impression and then I'm just going to watercolor in my stamp. This is not watercolor paper, so it's going to buckle like this. This is just cleaning off my brush when I was playing with some watercolors the other day, and that's fine. It's just a scrap journal page. So let's go ahead and get a stamp impression. I'm going to go ahead and use black because I want to have the stark contrast, and I'm going to use colors to fill it in. Okay, I love it. And I love this rubber. It worked really well, Terry. Thank you so much. So I've got my impression, and I'm just going to take some watercolor. This is just cheap watercolors from Hobby Lobby, the Crayola kind. I'm just going to take a few colors and just kind of smush them around in there and get some color. We could have put color down on the paper first and then just stamped on top of it. That would be pretty too, but this is just the way I chose to do it today. I've got two round brushes. This one's a size 8, so this one's probably a size 4, 2, I don't know. I can't find a number on it. Doesn't really matter, just whatever you like using. And some water. All right, I'm gonna let that dry a little bit. Okay, this is still drying a little bit, but I went over and pulled some papers for my background. So we're just gonna go ahead and play with those. I have some washi tape out also in case I want that. I like this with it. This is too matchy, so we'll leave that out. I might use a piece of this paper. Maybe a little piece of this. I like that black little dot right there, so maybe that. And Maybe that, I'm not sure. The flower is going to fit on the paper this way, so we'll put our papers down to accommodate this layout. Let's see, I have this washi tape I might want to use. This is from Wow Studio. I really need to cut this out so I can see what I want. I'll trim it up some more in a minute. I think I'll go ahead and glue this down. I'm going to cut this little section right here out. I'm going to glue it on to the flower so that I can cut what I want. There, I like that. I think I'll glue my flower down now. Don't know if I want it there. We're going to switch it up. There, I like this orientation better. I would have done the background different had I realized I wasn't going to like it that way, but I still like the background fine, so we're okay. It looks like a stem, but that's not what it's intended to be. I want to use a leaf stamp that I've already carved, and I want to add a couple leaves here, but I don't know which one I want, so I'm just going to stamp all of them, and then I'll cut out the one I like the best. And I'm going to stamp them all with the black ink and just color them in if I want them colored in. That might be cute if I put a stem. Okay, I tried a stem, but then I decided I wanted a black stem because of the leaves, and I just like the black outline, the darkness, so I found a little piece of black. And I'm just going to stick these leaves like right there. I think those are cute. Okay, I like that a lot. That's so cute. Okay, now what I need is to bring this background under control a little bit. A little bit of white gesso. This is Liquitex gesso. Kind of a scruffy brush. Just adding a little bit more washi tape. Same company, Wow. That's really cute. I'm gonna use my mechanical pencil. Makes a finer line. I like the scribbles it makes. Okay, I want to bring this little line into the flower. I don't know if I want it all the way down or here. Maybe there. That was a black Stabilo All pencil that I just used. Let's get a word and then we'll be done. I pulled a phrase off of this Cosmo Cricut tiny text sheet that I've had for so long. I'm trying to use up these words. This says, I believe in you. I'm going to use that because I believe in you that you can carve your own stamps. And I hope you give it a try. There we go. We grounded the flower. The flower's growing out of there. I believe in you. You can grow, you can learn, you can do all the things. All right. So today's video was mainly about carving the stamp, and I think that the stamp we got was very cute. I'm really happy with it, and I will be using this a lot in my art, and I will probably be making more. So if you enjoyed this, let me know. If you'd like to do another stamp together, let me know and we'll do another stamp. I'll be back soon with a video with what I'm up to. I've been doing some eco printing and enjoying that. I've been doing some tea dyeing and coffee dyeing, and I've got some bundles actually drying in the pan in the kitchen. They're just sitting out. They're not in a stove or anything. They're just drying, air drying, so it'll be a few days before they're dry. That's been a lot of fun. And I'll share with you my eco prints and my journal that I've been working on and things like that in another video. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a great whatever it is. I hope you carve a stamp, and if you do, let me know. And if I missed anything or something didn't quite gel, let me know, and maybe I can address it in a video. If anybody out there is a stamp carver and you have some tips for everybody that someone might learn from, be sure and comment below. And we all start somewhere. We're all at a different spot. So I'm still a beginner and I'm learning too. So whatever you know that you can share would be great. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great whatever it is, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.